Okay, so we need to talk about denotation and connotation, which deals with words and the impressions that they give and how we kind of feel about them, but also the actual, dictionary definition, which is denotation. So denotation is easy to remember because denotation is the dictionary definition of a word. So if you just remember DDD, denotation, dictionary, definition. Okay, so finding out the denotation of a word requires you to analyze and really think about how the word is used in the sentence, especially if it's one of those words that has, several different options of how it could be used and what the meaning could be. So you need to choose the most accurate definition based on the way that the author uses that word. And then I would always suggest, substituting some synonyms into the word's place in the sentence to see if that changes the sentence's meaning. So let's look at an example. So this is the sample test question, and it asks you to choose the best option for the denotation of the underlined word in the following sentence. And that sentence is, she greeted me with a chilly air and did not seem excited to see me again. So we're going to look at possible denotations of that word chilly. So A says cold as in temperature. Well, we know that chilly does mean cold, but this is talking about, whether it's hot or cold. That's why it mentions temperature. Distant as an attitude, so somebody who seems like they don't really want to talk. Maybe they're somewhere else mentally. They're thinking of something else. Uninviting and unenthused as an attitude, so somebody who is acting like they're not very excited to see someone. Or D, freezing as in temperature, so very, very cold if we're talking about, hot or cold. So the best option for this would be, hold on, I think that I can draw on the screen. The best option for this would be uninviting and unenthused as an attitude. Oh, look at that. That's a very terrible circle. Good. So if you chose that, then that is great. Let's move on to the other one. I think I have to erase this. Okay, so next example. Next example. So the student seemed completely bemused by the idea and became silent as she pondered it in great depth with a smile on her face. So now it's asking us to find the denotation of the word bemused. So we have option A, confused and frustrated. We have option B, lost in thought about a subject. Option C, amused but thoughtful. Or option D, completely lost and unable to follow a thought. Option A is probably one we can mark off because it mentions that she smiles, so she doesn't really seem confused and frustrated. Option B seems plausible because lost in thought about a subject. She's clearly thinking deeply. It tells us that. Ponder means to think. C, amused but thoughtful. That one sounds like a good fit too because amused would go with the fact that she was smiling. And D, completely lost in thought and unable to follow a thought. That one doesn't seem likely because she doesn't seem like she's completely lost in this sentence. It seems like she's kind of following, but, isn't completely lost. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't be smiling. So the best option is C, amused but thoughtful, because that includes the second part of the sentence, which mentions that she was smiling. So C is the correct answer. Okay, moving on. Next example. The ground grew softer under his moccasins. The vegetation grew ranker, denser. Insects bit him savagely. So we're finding the denotation for the word savagely. We have option A, which means with fury and violence. Option B, which means without end. Option C, which means with cruelty and force. And option D, which means without humanity or civilized expectations. We can definitely mark off option D because we're talking about insects, so we wouldn't expect them to be, human-like or civilized. We can probably mark off option B without end because, it's going to end at some point. The best option would be option C. Option C with cruelty and force because, these mosquitoes, they're doing this savagely. They're refusing to stop. Okay, he's really overwhelmed by all the mosquito bites that he's getting and, all the other terrible things that would be in the jungle. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Oops, maybe. Okay, so then as he stepped forward, his foot sank into the ooze. And I forgot to underline it, but we're supposed to be analyzing the word ooze. So we're finding the denotation of the word ooze. So A, to seep out slowly in an unappetizing way. B, to release a liquid in slow quantities. C, any thick, sticky, or unappealing substance. Or D, anything dirty and gross like mud. We can easily knock off A and B because A and B are verb definitions, which ooze can be used as a verb, like if, I don't know, the pimple oozed. But so those are verb definitions, and this is being used as a noun in this sentence. His foot sank into the ooze. So you would need something that would be a noun. So that would either be C or D, and the best option would be C, any thick, sticky, or unappealing substance. Option D is too specific in this case. It gets too specific by mentioning the word mud. So let's go ahead and scrap that. Okay, moving on to the next one. So talking about connotation, whenever we talk about connotation in a word's connotation, we're trying to get you to think about the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are associated with the word. So usually this will be pretty typical based on, how we use our words in our language. So a word's connotation can either be positive, negative, or neutral. Positive connotations are words that make us think of happy and pleasant feelings. Negative connotations are things that make us think of gross, unappealing, sad things, maybe anger. And then neutral are words that we really don't have strong feelings about. They're those words that we use, but we don't really care about them very much in terms of, our feelings. Okay, so this is a sample test question over connotation. So it asks you to choose the best option for connotation of the underlined word in the following sentence. As he walked into the locker room, his nose detected the overwhelming odor of sweaty socks and body odor. This definitely has a negative connotation, right? The word odor is pretty gross. It makes us think of gross things. Especially that the sentence goes on and says sweaty socks and body odor. It does not sound like pleasant smells. So that would definitely be negative. Moving on. Okay, connotation of the underlined word. The witch let out a hearty cackle at the thought of the children following the breadcrumb trail to her cottage. Well, cackle, the denotation technically is a laugh, but this would definitely have a negative connotation because it does not sound like a happy laugh. If somebody cackles, you think there's got to be some, malicious reason for them to be laughing so meanly. So good. Negative would be the correct answer there. Okay. Born to survivalists in the mountains of Idaho, she prepared for the end of the world by stockpiling home canned peaches. So this one asks you to analyze the connotation of the word mountains. Mountains is not really one that we have positive or negative associations with. So the correct answer to this would be neutral. Neutral. Yeah, we don't really care that much about how we feel about mountains. And that's, regardless of whether or not you like mountains, okay? It's not taking your personal preferences. It's taking our linguistic associations with words. Here's another one. Her quest for knowledge transformed her, taking her over oceans and across continents to Harvard and to Cambridge University. I forgot to underline this one as well, but the word that it's asking about is quest. So a quest for knowledge. We know that quest means a journey, but do we think that's positive, negative, or neutral? The correct answer would be positive, because usually if we think of a quest, we think of heroes and, people who do heroic deeds and actions and things like that. So positive would be the correct answer for that one. Okay, I think I have two more examples. Okay, so this one, it asks you to analyze the word youthful. Her face had a youthful look about it. That sounds like she, is aging very well. She still has a very young looking face. So that would definitely be a positive connotation, because that sounds like a compliment that you would give someone. You have a very youthful face. You look, like a young person in talking about your skin and things like that. And then the last example. Her face had a childish look about it. So this one would be a negative connotation, because childish sounds like she is, immature. Okay, good, awesome.